Just Jeff here. Today I'm going to prepare some green peppers for processing so that we can put them into the freeze dryer and put them into long-term storage. So come along as I go through this process. Okay, I came across a good deal on peppers the other day, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I go about getting them prepared for the freeze dryer. First thing I want to do is I want to take out the seeds and the stem. And then I'm going to cut it in half so I can get the rest of all this cleaned out. All these seeds I'll end up throwing to the animals or putting it into compost. We do hot compost, so any of the seeds will not be viable. You can take the seeds and actually plant them, and I'm going to have some upcoming videos on some different things that I'm going to start and see how well they grow from things that I get from the store. Cantaloupe, I think there's some peppers, maybe some tomatoes, pumpkin. So we'll have some of those trials coming up here in the near future. Okay, we've got all of our peppers here. What we're going to do, and what I'm doing today is I'm actually doing multicolor peppers that we can put in things like omelets and different types of soups. We also do strictly green ones, but typically any of the colored ones we just do a variety. So that's what I'm doing today. And I just cut them into strips and then just put them into little chunks. Doesn't matter how big or how small, they will shrink a little bit. You can also dehydrate these. They just won't last as long. I've done them both ways, but I prefer the freeze dryer because I can get them stored in jars, and they will last for years. And they're real super easy to rehydrate. And then once I get done with this, then what I do is I stick them in the freezer, preferably overnight, get them nice and frozen, and then stick them into the freeze dryer. I tend to think that I have better luck that way. So, and then I just go to another color. Good. Again, if you have extra peppers or you find something on sale like I did here, then this is a great way to store them, and you don't have to use them right away. We do this a lot with the peppers that we grow. Unfortunately, this is not the time of year and we don't have a greenhouse yet, so as we get low, I start looking for sales. It's always nice that if you have the means and the ability to find stuff on sale, that you take advantage of those sales, because it seems like, as a lot of people are witnessing, that food prices are going through the roof. So anytime you can get a deal, it's a good thing to try and jump on it. Another method you can do that I've also used is doing the same thing, but rather than, and it goes down to these chunks, but rather than put them in a freeze dryer, just put them in a freezer, vacuum pack them, or use a a Ziploc bag that you can suck the air out of, and just freeze them, and they'll last a couple of years just frozen. But I have a lot of other things in the freezer. I have a lot of meat in the freezer, and so this is something, if I can preserve it in a different way, I try to. That way I keep room in the freezer and I'm not just filling it up. So we'll come back here in just a second when I have all these cut up, and I'll show you the next step. Okay, now that we're finished with our dicing, chopping up, you can see just all the beautiful colors here. We just flatten it out, and I get it ready to put into the freezer. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start cooling this down. So I just come up here and we hit the start. Scale there, we got the pump, and we've got 15 minutes for the vacuum chamber to cool down, and we'll load it up. Alright, we're going to do a little update. It's a little loud in here. I'm going to try and give you a little look inside. There's the peppers that we did. You can see the ice forming around the tube there inside the machine, like it's supposed to. And if we come up, we're still in the drying period, and it looks like we've been going 17 hours and 26 minutes. We're still drying. It's been drying for 11 hours and 15 minutes. So we're going to continue to let it do its thing. We haven't had to touch it. It's just kind of doing its own thing. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start working on some apples while this is running, so I can get them prepared for another run in the freeze dryer. Stay tuned. Alright, in this section what I'm going to do is we're going to start working on some apples. Today we're doing Cosmic Crisp is what they're called, and so we're going to start cutting those up. They're a little different than the peppers we cut up. The peppers I went ahead and diced, and so we can freeze dry them and use them in omelets and soups and things like that. These I'm going to slice up and freeze dry them so we can use them for snacks like backpacking or like hiking. So stay tuned and we'll get going with that. So before preparing these apples, I went ahead and washed them. They're store-bought. I wanted to make sure that they were clean. Even if it was my own apples or my own produce, I make sure they're washed thoroughly. Because these are store-bought, I just wanted to make sure that before I get started that everything's washed off. These were bought on sale, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to make some backpacking or hiking snacks. So first thing what I'm going to do is, after washing, is I'm just going to start slicing them. And it doesn't matter how thick they are, try and get them relatively same thickness. And we'll go over this. Okay, and once I do this, what I like to do is I like to cut it in half and then cut anything out that's in the middle, like so. The reason I cut them in half is it fits in the jars easier. I usually keep these in quart jars. And as far as the seeds, we want to make sure the seeds aren't in there. What happens with the seeds if you ingest them, the enzymes in your digestive tract, they release a toxin that actually releases cyanide into your body. So if you ate enough seeds, theoretically you could get cyanide poisoning, but it's very minuscule. So if you accidentally have one or two, it's not going to hurt you. But it's just a good idea to try and keep them out. That kind of goes the same for animals as well. You don't want to feed them a lot of apple seeds if you can help it. So I just go through here, and again, unlike the peppers, with these I'm cutting them in half because they are going to be snacks. We'll go ahead and get the rest of these cut up. I'll show you what a tray looks like, and then I'll show you what all the trays look like before I put them in the freezer. So stay tuned. Okay, and there's what one of my trays looks like. They're just spread out there, and I'll throw these into the freezer. You want to try and get them in the freezer as soon as you can, because the longer the apples are exposed to air, they start to oxidize and they'll turn brown. Now you can use a real light solution of citric acid, so basically you can use something to spray on them if you want, but typically I just like them just like this. You can also put nutmeg, cinnamon. You can put some different toppings on here if you want, but typically we just like them just like they are. All right, so here we're completed. Worked out really nice. The one bag of apples, 4 pounds, fit exactly on 4 trays, which is how many trays I can put in at one time in my freeze dryer. One thing too is that I chose to make these into snacks, make these into, cut them in half essentially. You could also dice them up. You could do anything you want. If you want to make pie filling, or if you want to make like something for an apple pie, there's so many different things you can do with these once they're dried. You just have to rehydrate them, and the uses are unlimited. The other nice thing about this is that these will last for easily 5 years, probably even longer than that, being freeze dried if they're stored properly. We always store everything in jars because we have quite a bit of space in our pantry, but you could freeze them. You could do numerous things, but if you have an overabundance of apples or pears or different fruits during the fall season when you're harvesting them, this is a great way of preserving them. So now I'm going to go ahead and put these in the freezer. They'll probably freeze overnight, maybe even a day and a half, because once my peppers are done, I have to let the freeze dryer defrost completely before I start another session with it. So it'll probably be in the freezer 2 days, I imagine, and then we'll get these in the freeze dryer and we'll show you what they look like when we're finished. All right, we're back here the next day, and it looks like they're pretty much done. I believe the time was about 39 hours that we did. They're very dry and great snack. I didn't film the peppers. I forgot to turn the camera on, so I'll show you what those look like. I'll put up in the jar, but essentially from here what we do is we just take and we start filling this in. And we just take them up. Try and keep whatever moisture you can off your got dry hands. This is an excellent snack. Again, we use these for backpacking and hiking, and you can use them if you hunt. You can use them for a hunting snack. There's nothing on these. These are all just the raw apple. They didn't add anything. You can add sugar, you can add cinnamon, you can add whatever you like to it. And but these are Cosmo or Cosmic Crisp, I believe they are, and so they're very sweet as they are. Once I get that done, we will put the lid on. Now these you can also put in an oxygen absorber if you want for longer term storage. These won't last that long, so I'm not going to waste a packet. But that's one thing you can do, and that'll suck the oxygen out and make them last even that much longer.
And here are the peppers that I did. There's the yellow, a little bit of green. And here's some more of them. This is the one that we currently take peppers out as we need them. And as I do more peppers, then I'll fill this up and I'll just keep adding to the stockpile. Well, that's just a couple ways that we put up our fruit and some of our vegetables. I want to thank you for stopping by. Like and subscribe if you wish. We're going to continue on with some of these videos. We're going to be doing more of garden stuff as the weather permits. And of course this fall, later on this summer and this fall, we'll be doing a lot more canning and freeze drying and dehydrating. So stay tuned.